Clouds shivered away from the moon, spilling a silver river across the rooftops of Pharaoh's End. Tamsin pressed her forehead to the chill glass of her attic window, scratching hurried lines on a spread of parchment. Her heart thudded, a wild, syncopated rhythm, matching the strange pulsing she'd mapped in the stars for weeks now. A constellation usually steady as a lighthouse beacon, the silver goat, wobbled, its brightest star flickering. Tamsin's nib hesitated. Along the spine of her self-made star chart, a set of dots seemed to coil into an unfamiliar symbol, a spiral that hadn't been there before. It spun shadows over the other constellations, edges bleeding into darkness. Just as she traced the spiral, a knock rattled her door. She startled, scattering ink blots. "Who's there?" Her voice cracked from hours of silence. "Your window's too bright. You'll wake the crows," called a dry, sardonic voice. From years in Pharaoh's End, Tamsin knew nearly every tongue, but this one, sharp, low, sullen, was unfamiliar. A slender man in a deep blue cloak stepped inside, lantern hooded in his hand. Silver runes crawled along the hem. "You see it, don't you? The shadow behind the goat," he said. Even in darkness, his eyes glittered with the shimmer of distant stars. "Who are you? How did you?" "Name's Calder, astrologer by trade, or ex-astrologer, depending who you ask. I've followed that same shadow across 4 cities and a dozen dreams." He tipped his lantern, motes shimmied like dust. "If we don't trace it to its root, every dream you've ever had and every map you've ever made, gone." Tamsin's hands shook. "Gone?" Like fog at dawn. Behind her, the window pane warped. A silvery shape oozed from the moonbeams, a creature with eyes like opals and fur that glittered. It dipped its head in greeting. Tamsin stared, breath stilled. Calder only smirked. Moonshifter. They turn up when the loom wavers. Name's Lyra if she lets you use it. Isn't that right? The creature's tail swirled into rune shapes. Tamsin caught a tremble of meaning. Trust. Urgency. Outside, clouds massed again. The spiral danced at the edge of her vision. "If the loom fails, what happens to us?" Calder muttered. "No more stories, no more hope. And worse, come morning most won't remember what they've lost. Only those who map the stars and the monsters." He nodded at Lyra. Tamsin drew a ragged breath. "Then we'd better find the loom." Lyra shimmered, the air filling with cool, wild energy. Calder grinned, a little less cynical now. "Good, because we start tonight." Tamsin packed her maps and courage. As she stepped into the moonlit street with her unlikely companions, neither she nor the silver goat burned as steady as before, but sometimes, she thought, stories needed darkness to shine the brightest. Shadows writhed between alley stones as Tamsin hurried after Calder, her satchel bouncing against one hip. Lyra shimmered at her side, paws drifting just above the ground, silver fur glowing in fitful moonlight. They slipped through Pharaoh's End with only the hush of their steps betraying their presence. Lanterns guttered in windows, painting restless shapes across shuttered glass. Every time Tamsin glanced up, the constellation spiral seemed to coil tighter, a snare closing unseen. They stopped at a crossroads near the town's forgotten border, old stones worn smooth by generations of feet and centuries of secrets. Calder crouched, sweeping his lantern across the faded runes cracked into the earth. "This used to be a marker, a path to the Astral Spire before the city forgot its past," he murmured. "Old spirits sometimes linger here. They remember what people want to forget." Wind gusted, carrying a smell of rain and midnight. Tamsin pressed closer. "You said everyone would forget their stories. Why me? Why remember?" Calder didn't meet her eyes at first. Instead, he traced one rune with his finger. "Dreamers and mapmakers keep memory safe. You see patterns others miss. Like Lyra, moonborn, made to twist shadows into warnings." He looked at Tamsin, frank this time. "You notice what the darkness wants to hide." Suddenly, the old stones pulsed. Pale green fire crackled in the runes, twisting upward. Ghostly figures rose, faces fractured by sorrow, eyes luminous with secrets. Lyra hissed, her voice ringing not in Tamsin's ears but in her chest. "Ask, but beware." Tamsin stepped forward. Her throat felt raw, but she forced out the question. "How can we reach the spire before the spiral consumes us all?" One spirit, a woman with a crown of branches, glided close. Her voice was the whisper of wind through dying leaves. "Those who forget cannot open the gate. Memory is your guide. Yet the path is broken, guarded by what you fear most." Calder grimaced. "Illusions, beasts made of regret." Tamsin swallowed, mapping the old stories in her mind. "If we remember, we might survive. Together." The spirit drifted back, shadows winking out. The runes faded, but one line remained alight, carving a path along the road, the old route to the Astral Spire. Calder flashed his first real smile. Looks like your courage works on spirits too. Lyra nudged Tamsin's hand with her cold, soft snout. For a second, warmth blossomed in Tamsin's chest, banishing the dreadful chill from the spiral overhead. She straightened, map in hand. Let's follow the path. We can't let the world lose its stories. As the three of them stepped onto the shining line, Tamsin wondered what old fears waited along the way, and whether she could map her own destiny as deftly as she charted the stars. Their journey wound out of Pharaoh's End, following the faintly glowing runes that marked the old road. With every step, the air thickened, heavy with forgotten words and unshed dreams. Only Lyra seemed at ease, weaving in and out of shadows as if she'd known this path for centuries. A restless hush settled over the wild hills. Tamsin, clutching her map, spoke low. Did you really see this happen before, Calder? Dreams, memories, just gone? He eyed the horizon, jaw clenched. Not like this. There were rumors of lost villages, places wiped from all charts. But I thought they were stories to frighten young apprentices. Until last night, I never believed anything could devour dreams. Lyra's form shimmered beside them, eyes catching starlight. There is always something that hungers, she whispered, the words strange on her tongue. A branch snapped ahead. Calder stopped short. Did you hear that? Tamsin's heart hammered. From the shadows, a creature emerged, its shape shifting in the moonlight, now made of smoke, now bone, now fading, weeping faces. Tamsin stumbled back. The thing fed on their hesitation, growing larger. Calder grabbed her arm. It's an illusion. Fear makes it stronger. Don't let it trick you. But Tamsin's mind raced with doubt. She remembered childhood terrors, the feel of her father's hand lost in a storm, her mother's song disappearing at dusk. The beast ballooned, eyes flickering, mouths multiplying. Lyra stepped forward, her paw etching runes in the dirt. Remember who you are, she told Tamsin. Name yourself. Tamsin tried to breathe. I am Tamsin, mapmaker of Pharaoh's End. I chart stars and shape stories with ink. With every word, the illusion shrank. Calder joined in, his voice steady. I am Calder, exiled but unbroken. I walk by the guidance of the sky. The beast screeched, unraveling into ribbons of starlight that Lyra devoured eagerly. In moments, only moon shadows remained. The threat was gone. Tamsin laughed shakily. I never thought words could save us. Calder slapped her back. Names and stories are more powerful than you know, especially here. Lyra nodded, tail curling. Many more illusions await. Remember what is true, and you may find the loom. As they pressed onward past the place of fear, Tamsin felt something inside her steady. She'd faced shadows of regret and survived. But she wondered, with the path growing steeper and the spell of forgetting thick around them, whether their courage would hold when the real darkness arrived. The hills grew jagged as the path climbed, the air thinning and thickening with each step, as though reality itself became heavier. Shadows twined across the old rune road, where wildflowers and mist tangled together in shapes almost, but not quite familiar. The spiral in the sky pressed closer, a darkness Tamsin could feel gnawing at the edges of her mind. A ruined archway loomed ahead, half swallowed by brambles that bloomed with blue flame flowers. Calder paused, eyes narrowing at the flickering petals. Spirits like these protect what's hidden. Don't step on the blue ones, or you'll lose years in a blink. Tamsin tiptoed after him, careful to follow Calder's path. Lyra darted lightly, leaving small prints that seemed to heal the disturbed foliage as she passed. Inside the arch, the world shifted. The road split in two, each path marked by a stony monument. The left shimmered with golden light, promising comfort. The right, darker, exhaled cold wind and showed distant pinpricks, stars, just out of reach. Calder frowned. The easy way's never the true way. Tamsin hesitated, feeling the comforting pull of the left path like a warm blanket. She heard laughter, her mother's from her childhood, sweet and safe. Why shouldn't we take the golden road, even for a little while? Lyra's eyes found hers, gentle but insistent. Comfort is the first seduction of oblivion. To reach the loom, you must face the night inside yourselves. Reluctantly, Tamsin tore her gaze from imagined warmth and nodded. They turned toward the shadowed road. As soon as they stepped onto it, the cold deepened. Mists clung to them, whispering doubts. You will fail. You are alone. no, Calder said quietly, as if arguing with his own ghosts. We are what we choose to remember. Onward they pressed, and the mists parted to reveal a small flickering spirit, a watchful child, translucent and sad. Its voice was both echo and song. To pass, speak a truth you fear. Tamsin's throat closed. She shivered, then forced herself to speak. I was never sure I truly belonged in Pharaoh's End. Sometimes I think I draw maps to find a place for myself. The child tilted its head, eyes full of silver light. Calder followed. I betrayed my old master's trust. My exile was not mere fate, it was my fault. The spirit nodded and faded, revealing a piece of sky ahead, unclouded and shining. Lyra flicked her tail. Vulnerability mends the past. A little lighter, they moved forward side by side. The star spiral above pulsed sinister. But now Tamsin felt less alone, her fears spoken and faced. As they rounded the bend, the Astral Spire shimmered distant but clearer, its starlit peak promising both peril and possibility. The real climb was about to begin. The first rays of dawn broke silver and wan over the horizon, barely nudging back the heavy spiral that still crowded the sky. The Astral Spire loomed closer with every step, jagged and ancient, its stonework webbed with glowing veins that pulsed like heartbeat. Tamsin, Calder, and Lyra paused at its base, ringed by obsidian columns inscribed with golden script so old it shimmered and shifted, unreadable except through the corner of one's eye. Lyra paced, her form fogging and growing lean, light bending oddly around her. The bridge is hidden. Only those who accept what's lost may cross. Calder hung his head, squinting at the stone. There must be some trick or... Tamsin, feeling the weight of sleepless nights and her own confessed longing, stepped forward. Her fingers brushed the runes. As she did, memories she'd tried to bury flashed across her mind. Her father's empty chair, friends drifting away, the crushing ache of never quite fitting in. Tears sprang, and yet somehow she didn't turn away. The columns sighed. Between them shimmered a staircase of mist and moonbeams, spiraling upward and vanishing into the dawn-striped clouds above. You did it, Calder breathed. Tamsin wiped her eyes. We all lose things. Maybe that's how we move forward. One after the other, they placed their feet on the ghostly steps. The bridge didn't tremble. It thrummed with a promise. As they climbed, Pharaoh's End shrank below, a patchwork memory fading between the clouds. Midway, Lyra halted. Something follows. A shadow burst across the staircase, coiling up the rails. It congealed into a new monstrous form, all eyes and writhing clocks whose hands spun backward. Calder shouted, drawing a dagger etched with constellations. It's time, forgets! It tries to erase us from our own pasts. The beast slashed at Tamsin. Pain lanced her wrist. A memory, precious and bright, fluttered out of her grasp. A birthday, a song, a smile. She stumbled, suddenly desperate, grabbing her satchel. No, she yelled. With trembling hands, she unfurled her star map and held it aloft. I name these. I remember. The map glowed, stars flaring as she called out each constellation, every name echoing bright against the beast's shadow. Calder joined in, shouting sky verses he'd learned as a boy. Lyra sang, her voice wild and silver. The shadow shrieked as the memories refused to vanish, dissolving under the light of named stars. The air cleared. The staircase stretched on, daring them higher. Panting and shaken, Tamsin carefully rolled up her map. Calder gripped her shoulder. That's twice you, Tamsin offered a thin, hopeful smile. We save each other. That's how stories live. Lyra purred, and the trio pressed on, bound for the summit and the ancient loom. Each step claimed with hard-earned memory, and the hope that what they remembered could still save them all. The spiral of stairway finally met stone as dawn burnt away into a cold, sharp morning. The summit of the Astral Spire was a crown of jagged rock, threaded with veins of iridescent light, and at its heart waited the Loom of Fates. It stood in a shadow-dappled hollow, ancient and immense, a great wheel threaded with cords of starlight, each shifting and singing with the memories of the world below. But it was still now, and some threads frayed into darkness that writhed and crept, hungrily nibbling at the rest. Tamsin drew closer, breath-catching. She felt every story she had ever loved tug at her, from childhood tales to stargazers' lore, all trembling on the verge of unraveling. It's beautiful, she whispered, but it's fading. Calder knelt at the loom's base, studying runes half-choked with dust. Guides say the loom can be mended if woven with a story strong enough to hold back the dark. Lyra padded silently around the rim, her fur flickering through spectrums of light. With urgent eyes she crooned, "What's fraying is not just memory, but hope. The greatest tales are those reborn in darkest hours." Suddenly, a sharp, icy wind howled, and a flock of translucent, raven-like spirits erupted from the rocks. Their wings beat stories into tatters, their voices a cacophony of forgotten wishes. One dove near Tamsin, screeching, "Abandon hope! Join us in the spiral!" Tamsin reeled, words of doubt hammering her thoughts. She remembered every map unfinished, every plan gone wrong. Calder clutched his dagger, eyes wild. "Don't listen. Remember why we climbed. Speak your story, Tamsin." Clutching her map, Tamsin fought to steady her breath. She pictured Pharaoh's End, late nights at her attic desk, those first moments she saw patterns where others saw empty sky. Her voice shook, but she forced words out. "I'm here because I won't let what matters slip away. Not dreams, not names, not the stories that make us." As she spoke, starlight flared from her satchel, dancing up her arms. The attacking spirits shuddered and burst like glass struck by a bell. Lyra leapt atop the loom and intoned a story shared as a thread reforged. Calder joined, his voice steadier now. "We will not surrender to forgetting." With every word, the loom brightened. Dimly at first, then stronger, as if its broken threads leaned toward their hope. Tamsin's heart clutched at a new, wild idea. She, Calder, and Lyra must braid their truths into the weaving. Only together could they light the ancient mechanism and restore what the spiral darkness threatened to erase. But the darkness coiled tighter above, the greatest trial still ahead. As the loom's glow steadied, the shadows at the summit thickened, watching, waiting, and ready to strike against the fragile collective story holding back oblivion. Clouds swirled and pressed against the spire's edge, cutting Tamsin and her companions off from the world below. The spiral above pulsed darkly, casting a dizzying spin of shadow and fear over the Loom of Fates. Calder's knuckles whitened around his dagger. Whatever's coming, it knows we're here. It hungers for the loom. We have to finish the braid. Lyra shimmered into her moon owlish shape, wings flickering. Begin quickly. Darkness draws closer with doubt. Tamsin pulled the cords of starlight close and closed her eyes, listening for the stories in her heart. She saw herself sketching by candlelight. She felt Calder's trust building beside her and remembered Lyra's silent comfort since that rainy first meeting. Each memory became a thread. She started to weave, fingers trembling but sure. Calder added his own, a moment of apprenticeship, his master's pride, then grief at his own mistakes. He wove forgiveness and hope beneath self-doubt. His thread gleamed with stormy blue and gold. Lyra pressed a silvery rune thread among theirs, wordless memories flowing from her as the moon's changing face, promise, loneliness, longing for kin. The loom, fed by their joining, flashed with radiant colors and sent a song cracking through the stifling air. The spiral recoiled, its shadow warping and spitting in rage. A voice whispered, violent everywhere, "You are small, your hope weak. I've devoured greater world stories. You cannot outlast the night spiral." Tamsin's resolve faltered, just a heartbeat of fear before Calder reached across, gripping her hand. "It's listening to us. That means it fears us." Lyra encouraged, "Sing your truths again. Doubt unravels, but shared stories are stronger." So they began to chant, tiger bright, star sharp, tales of childhood fears overcome, lost friends remembered, promises met and broken, then mended. With every word, the loom spun faster, threads knit into destiny's fabric, their new story shining just as fiercely as any legend of old. But the night spiral began to descend, a gloom thick as ink, and from its core emerged a cloaked figure with a crown of broken glass. The adversary, tall and cold, reached toward the loom. "No more weaving. The world will forget. Give me your final tale." Tamsin, her eyes wide but voice steady, stepped between the figure and the loom. "Then we'll give you not one but 1,000, and they'll outlast even you." The true battle for memory and hope had begun, and the loom, though brighter, trembled at the threshold of fate. Lightning forked across the clouds, throwing the summit into sharp relief. The figure from the night spiral advanced, swirling darkness dragged in its wake, memories and dreams sucked from the world below, twisting through the torn air like sobbing ghosts. Calder drew close to Tamsin and Lyra, voice low and urgent. "Protect the loom. We need more than just memory. We need a vow the spiral can't break." Lyra shifted form again, her shape becoming larger, almost celestial, her moonlight blending with the whirring wheels of the loom. She sang, her notes spinning an aurora overhead, keeping the spiral's force at bay for a moment more. The adversary sneered, its voice a rasp of forgotten lullabies. You cannot fight emptiness. Stories end. That is the way. Tamsin shook, but did not retreat. Stories end, but new ones begin. That's the way of all living things. You want silence, but we choose meaning. She stepped to the loom, hands on its gleaming threads. Her voice rang out, naming every person she'd ever drawn on a map, every friend and fleeting hope. Calder stood with her, eyes glistening, adding his confessions, his first heartbreak, his boldest lie, his wildest wish. Each word became a light that branded the dark. The spiral howled, flinging shadows that tried to tear the woven braid. Lyra leapt, catching the darkness in her jaws and dispersing it with silver fire. Still, the spiral pressed closer, forcing the trio back. The loom spun so hard its threads blurred, sparks flying, but some cords unraveled under the onslaught. Tamsin lost her footing. Memories slipped, panic threatened. The adversary's hands closed around the braid. Cold swept into Tamsin's heart. For a heartbeat, it seemed all light might collapse. You are only human, the entity hissed. You are less than the night. But then Tamsin remembered something she'd never dared say aloud. She shouted, I'm afraid. But even in fear, I choose to try again, even if hope is small. Calder clung to the loom, his own fear naked in his voice. I never believed I deserved forgiveness, but I'm here, still choosing. Lyra circled them both, shape-dazzling, chanting, weakness is the start of every true story. The loom's light rallied, golden and blazing, hurling the spiral back by sheer will. But the adversary shrieked, growing into monstrous new forms, many-mouthed, all-devouring, unstoppable. The world below seemed forgotten as the summit became the stage for the final struggle. With hope flickering and the spiral's power mounting, Tamsin realized the only way to truly break the darkness was to unite every story, every voice still alive in the world into a last, desperate stand. Their next choice would shape the fate of memory itself. Wind screamed across the Astral Spire as the adversary towered above them, the spiral churning ever wider. The great wheel of the loom vibrated with tension, the woven braid of stories glowing, flickering at the verge of snapping. All around, shadows wrenched more memories from the world below. Names vanished from hearts. Childhood songs dissolved like dew. Even Calder's eyes glazed for a heartbeat, gripped by forgetting. We're slipping, he shouted, knuckles white around the braid. It's eating who we are! Tamsin fought a shudder. Fear crawled cold up her spine, but a thought burned through the dark. They were not alone. They had mapped a path here through honesty, wound their stories together. All living souls must remember and fight. She pressed her palm to the loom, crying out through the howling wind. Our stories aren't only ours. Every life below us remembers and dreams. She squeezed her eyes shut, feeling for distant hearts. Old friends, her mother's lullaby, Pharaoh's End's laughter, the whispered words that bind generations. Lara, shining fully now, raised her crystalline voice above the maelstrom, sending her moonlit song cascading down the mountain. Call to them all. Tamsin understood. Gritting her teeth, she poured her yearning into the loom. Calder caught her intention and did the same, voice hoarse but rising. Lara surged beside them, her light melding into the starlit web, the three of them united. Far below, all across the land, torches flickered as if answering in rhythm. Unwitting, children and elders alike began to speak old tales, sing snatches of songs, remember lost names and loves. Their words traveled unseen paths, threading into the loom with electricity and longing. The adversary roared, form flickering. Each voice became a knot it could not unravel. Enough! I am the night's spiral. Forgetting is stronger than memory. Tamsin, trembling but sure, shouted back, No, you are only the silence between chapters. We fill that gap. The loom thrummed under 1,000 stories, then 10,000 and more, the summit vibrating with the hopes and pains of a world refusing to let go. The spiral pressed and shrieked, dark arms snatching for the last thread. Suddenly, the ground cracked, the loom's axis groaned under the strain. Tamsin locked eyes with Calder and Lyra. It would not be enough to merely endure. They needed to do the unthinkable. Let go of their own single stories, surrendering them into the loom to bind memory itself with selfless hope. Calder said softly, It's the only way. If we give everything, the loom may heal. Lyra shimmered, sorrowful but proud. I will hold your names, even if you forget. With one last look, Tamsin wove her story, all pain, all love, all longing, deep into the spindle. Calder followed, adding his hardest truths. Lyra poured in her moonlit essence, completing the braid. The loom flared, dazzling, a pure song rising to shatter the spiral's grip. But as the apex of light roared and the adversary fractured, Tamsin felt her memories surge out of her, her heart pounding as she teetered on the edge of forgetting everything she fought to save. Would a world renewed be worth the price of her own story? The answer would shape the dawn to come. Brilliant white tore across the summit, the Loom of Fates humming with the chorus of countless memories. Tamsin felt her story unraveling from herself, twining into the world, a warmth and terror all at once. Calder's hand found hers for the briefest moment, and she saw in his eyes the relief and sorrow of sacrifice. The spiral shrieked, breaking under the unity of voices. Its darkness split, fragmenting into motes that faded as starlight surged. The adversary's form, now riddled with holes of pure light, howled, "Stories are ephemeral, silence will always return." But the loom spun brighter, a cosmos of braids crossing, holding the tales of the world tight. Far below, the lights of cities shimmered awake, each soul remembering some small joy, some promise, some hint of the legends that made them whole. Songs rose, laughter echoed. The world pushed back the night not with force, but with memory, shared, messy, beautiful. As the spiral collapsed, Tamsin gasped. For a heartbeat she hovered between memory and oblivion. Images cascaded before her, her father's worn hands, ink-smudged maps by lamplight, Calder's first crooked smile, Lyra's soft, guiding glow. Each began to flutter away, dissolving. She clung to their contours, whispering, "Don't forget me. Don't forget us." Calder wavered too, eyelids heavy. "Let it go, Tamsin, we give so the world may remember." Lyra circled them both, her light the last thread anchoring their names. A story given freely is never wholly lost. The world will tell it again. Suddenly the loom pulsed one final time, flaring with astonishing force. A wave of memory rippled outward, not erasure, but renewal. Around the world, people dreamed of stars, of shapes in the sky, of a mapmaker's courage, an exile's hope, a moon creature's song. Tamsin blinked. She and Calder stood at the spire's edge, Lyra curled beside them. For a long moment, confusion clouded them both. The details of their sacrifice were hazy, a sense of something desperately important done, but not how or when. Their names felt strange on their tongues, but not wholly gone. Calder rubbed his temples. Did we succeed? Lyra's eyes glimmered, ancient and kind. Look. They peered down the mountainside. In every town, stories bloomed, children telling tales, elders reciting old histories with new delight. Pharaoh's End rang with song, its people gathering in the square to speak of dreams in the night sky. The world's story was safe, not perfect, but alive and growing. Tamsin smiled, a tear streaking down her cheek. She didn't remember all the details, but hope filled her anew. Even if we don't know how we did it, we know why. That's enough. Calder grinned, newfound peace in the tilt of his head. Maybe new stories will chart the rest. Lyra pressed close, a gentle, reassuring presence. And the night sky is always there for the next mapmaker, the next storyteller. Memory and hope, forever woven. As dawn broke and traced invisible lines in the sky, a map for tomorrow and a wish for the next dreamer, the Loom of Fates pulsed quietly, guardian of the world's stories. Not just Tamsin's or Calder's, but all who choose to dream, remember, and fight the silence with their words. And so the Weavers of Starlight faded from legend into life, not forgotten, but forever part of a world that would never let its stories slip quietly into the dark.